find out my reasons on rock and roll music and why I preach against it, and I believe with all of my heart that it is a contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today. I 100% believe it. Why I believe that is because I know how it feels when you sing it. I know what it does to you. And I know the evil feeling that you feel.
Put a spell on you. Because you're mine.
TV.
Ed Sullivan?
And I just like, on the Ed Sullivan Show. I'm self-taught drummer. I used to, I didn't have a drum set for a long time. I learned playing on my mattress and listened to my headphones. That's how I kind of picked up playing drums and stuff, you know what I mean? Okay. And that was just like, for me, immediately, like, that's what I wanted to do, you know? And, you know, I went around, you know, we had up apartments near my house, and we would go around, me and my brother and our friends, we would go around knocking on doors, collecting empty soda bottles, and we'd save our money, and I saved up, and I bought my first guitar. I think I was like 7 or 8 years old.
First you got teenagers, and then teenagers got their complete freedom to do whatever they wanted, almost. So then you got the psychedelic 60s and all the peace, love, and happiness, and all the problems in the world that we were trying to put right, the beatniks and everything. But then for a while, it kind of got stale, if you like. People lost their way a bit. And then suddenly there was a new, I don't know if you'd call it a revolution, but certainly a new way people were thinking.
There was like a re-educating of cool shit.
Kick out the jams, motherfucker!
She got a TV on me. She got a TV on.
And everything changed forever.
Was you into glam and stuff?
Later, yeah. Well, not glam. We called it glitter.
Ziggy play guitar, jamming good with Weird and Gilly, and the spiders.
At that time, you know, it was Bowie, you know, glitter band, sort of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everything evolved after that.
The 70s was all glam, and I wound up seeing the David Bowie Diamond Dog show, and I've wound up finding the Ramones.
Like, I had no idea about punk and stuff. Until I started hanging out in the scene in New York when I was a kid. You know, I would go to all these concerts. I'd see anybody. That was my passion, just seeing different drummers and different bands and stuff like that. But then, I went to see the Dolls.
When I say I'm in love, you best believe I'm in love, L-U-V.
I think it started with the Dolls. You know, it wasn't really about them being able to play technically so much as it was just like a crazy, wild, good time, a lot of energy. I saw the Dolls so many times.
Did you?
Yeah.
In New York?
All over. See, we were kids, and we all had fake IDs, so we could go into Manhattan and go to the clubs, you know, and so, but you could see anybody. And I think a lot of the early bands were then doing a riff on the Dolls and ended up having nowhere to play, and they would play at, you know, CBGBs.
CBGBs was unique because Hilly's philosophy was you needed to be a original band. Yeah. If you played a cover song, he kicked you right out the door. Huh. But if you had a band, or Lindsay had a band, anybody that had a band could go in there and play any song, no matter how much you sucked. It didn't matter. Do you know what I mean? And really, he set a format. He set a pedestal for people to come out and be different and create a vision.
Well, the funny thing about the Ramones, I remember when they first came and they played in London, and probably the first 2 or 3 rows of the seats were all full of people that became bands very quickly after that night.
You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only 1 or 2 good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
Yeah, we got this CD called Punk. It's loaded with our favorite tunes, man.
Yeah.
Just listen.
John, where would you say the first germ of punk came from? From London or New York?
Oh, it's definitely New York.
When?
Summer of 1975, it was really visible, but it was building up for a short time before that.
Who were some of the people in on the ground work of punk?
The Ramones.
That was, you know, that was like, you know, from what I saw, that was where the roots of, like, you know, the original punk rock scene came from. You know, the Ramones and groups like that were just like really just like taking the ideas from like the late 50s, early 60s, doo-wop and rock and roll, and just playing it more simplified and with more of an edge.
I think Doyle said this once, even the punk rock, it's just rock and roll.
But you started punk, kind of.
Well, we consider it a genuine rock and roll, you know, from the gut, you know.
Punk in England is very much a product of poverty and unemployment. Can that be the case here in America?
Yeah, I'd say so. Poverty, yeah. I mean, nobody here is rich.
Yeah, no one has any money.
But we don't cry about it.
Rock and roll was meant for punks, and it started. I guess Elvis Presley started in the mid-50s. You know?
It happened with Elvis. He was one of the most despised people by the, you know, they wanted to ban Elvis. They wouldn't show him from the waist up on Ed Sullivan.
But punk is an answer to all the glitter and the stuff that costs a lot of money that you can afford.
Punk is just a rebellious rock for all kids all over. I mean, real rock and roll is punk. Not a bunch of old men playing music for your mothers and fathers. That's what you have now. It's what they call rock.
What I use rebellious images because I like the rebellion. I like when someone, you know, tells you, you're doing this, and you're, blah, blah, blah. Fuck you, no, I'm not doing that. You know, if I want to do it, I will, but I don't want someone telling me, you're doing this, or you're going to jail, or you're doing this because otherwise we'll send the army or the police after you, or this or that, or we'll destroy your career, or we'll blah, 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 you know, like, fuck off.
Right.
So really, a lot of the imagery is rebellious, and that comes from punk.
It was real music. It was you know, the whole landscape of music back then. And I was in the record business at the time also. It was all corporate stuff, you know, kind of like more contrived type stuff put together to sell rather than, you know, from the heart. So, you know, that's basically, you know, why we all turned to punk, because we wanted to hear real music again.
I just hated all that 70s, like, crappy music, like Journey and Foreigner and all that crap, and all those bands like The Who and all those really bad corporate crap that was shoved down everybody's throat. And it was kind of a thing that was happening in New York at the time.
The thing is, like, especially with that kind of music, right, you gotta kind of like, you gotta keep it simple.
You know, as long as the spirit's there, it's, you know, that's the most important thing, I think.
Punk or whatever you want to call it, rock and roll, you can't overplay that shit. You understand? You just gotta be it's an attitude, and you gotta play with fucking, you know, with heart.
Punk bands really just brought it back to that energy and the excitement of writing cool songs and getting people excited. get them to go crazy.
They were hugely influential, I think. I think as a turning point, people saying, "Hold on a minute, I can do this," you know, and I can pick up a guitar and play 3 chords. I can do this.
I thank God I grew up in a scene like that.
Nice.
Because there was so many good bands.
Yeah.
And it was like they came out of fucking woodwork.
No. And even if they did it a totally different way, it just inspired loads of people. And they were very passionate, and I loved them because there was a throwback to the old Shangri-Las and Phil Spector stuff in there, but with wild guitars. So